thanks for joining me today. This class is going to be part of a series which is going to be a combo of an introduction and a back to basics about yoga. So today we're going to be focusing on the warrior poses, and we'll also be focusing on the basic sun salutation. So I have today with me my friend Carrie, who's joining me, and she is going to be my model. And although I can't have you in my classroom to give physical adjustments to, I will be showing you on Carrie some of the adjustments that are necessary to get proper alignment as we practice these really foundational yoga postures. So to get started, we're gonna come into a standing position. So let's go ahead and start in mountain pose, Tadasana. This is a really basic pose that is a huge part of our yoga practice and a really important pose. Although it seems simple, it's really important to get our alignment right in Tadasana. So come to standing and bring your feet to hip distance apart. And let's start just at the foundation of our pose. So grounding down through the feet, we want to spread the toes wide. And as you spread the toes wide, just kind of rock around a little bit on your feet so you can really feel the foundation. You want to feel all your toes, you want to feel the heels, the sides of your feet. And then moving up from there, as we engage through the legs, the kneecaps are going to start to lift. So we want the quadriceps, the fronts of our legs, nice and engaged. And then we want to draw the tailbone down toward the floor. So we want to avoid any sway back. So drawing that tailbone down, this will naturally start to engage us through the core. So you want your core nice and tight, not just hanging out while we're standing here in mountain pose. We're gonna start to lift the chest. We wanna roll the shoulders down and away from the ears. So we want to avoid any hunched shoulders. We wanna relax the shoulders, but we also wanna be nice and engaged through the arms. So we're gonna tighten up through the triceps and the biceps. The palms are gonna face out, fingers are gonna face down toward the floor. We're gonna start to grow long through the back of the neck and the crown of the head. And we're gonna draw that chin down and in, but slightly lifted. So we don't wanna be like tucking the chin. Okay, so this is a nice solid foundation in mountain pose Tadasana. Really important pose. We're not just hanging out in Tadasana. We're nice and grounded and lifted. And then for mountain pose, we're gonna just simply lift the arms to come into tall mountain pose. So we keep our foundation through the legs, we lift our arms up overhead. And once the arms are up overhead, we want the wrists right over the shoulders, and the shoulders are gonna stay right over the hips. And we wanna find a gentle spiral of the pinkies in. Good, and this broadens us out through the collarbones. And again, we'll keep those shoulders nice and relaxed. Even though the arms are lifted, we want to avoid hunching up the shoulders by the ears. We want to pull them down and away from the ears. So this is tall mountain Tadasana pose. From Tadasana pose, we're gonna come into a standing forward fold. So two options, we can either bring the hands through the heart as we come into a forward fold, or we can sweep the arms off to the side. So Carrie's gonna sweep her arms off to the side. She's gonna come down with a flat back. She hinges at the hips, comes all the way down into a forward fold, releases her hands down onto the ground. So in standing forward fold, Uttanasana, I'm gonna have you turn toward the front of your mat, Carrie. We want to align the hips right over the heels. So oftentimes we can be a little bit too far forward or a little bit too far back, but Carrie looks pretty good right here. We want the hands resting on something. So Carrie's hands can reach the floor. However, if you're not flexible enough in the legs, go ahead and bend the knees generously. Good, and come all the way down. We want the head and neck nice and loose. Okay, so there's no tension in the head or the neck. We wanna hang heavy here in Uttanasana, standing forward fold. So just hold here for a couple of breaths. And again, if the legs are bent, that's great. If you have pretty flexible hamstrings, you can start to lengthen through the legs. We just want to keep those hips over the heels. All right, let's go ahead and come to a stand, Carrie. And from here, we're gonna move into our warrior poses. So our warrior poses are a nice foundation for our standing poses in our yoga practice. So we're gonna go through warrior 1, warrior 2, warrior 3, reverse warrior. So to start out with, we're gonna do warrior 1. So we'll just start on the right foot forward. So Carrie, go ahead and step your right foot forward and your left foot back. Now in warrior 1, Most often we're gonna have a shorter stance than we would in a warrior two. And the key to warrior one is that we're going to keep the hips squared to the front of the mat. So that right hip is gonna come back and the left hip is gonna come forward. And if the hips aren't quite squared to the front of the mat, you might wanna shorten the stance a little bit. Once the hips are squared to the front of the mat, we're working toward a nice generous bend in the front knee. Now you don't want to sacrifice the bend in the front knee for the squaring of the hips to the front of the mat. So if the hips start to come off to a kilter, then go ahead and either shorten the stance or back off of the lunge. We want the knee not to come past the ankle in our warrior one. So once we have our nice solid foundation in our legs, we want one more thing about the stance of the legs. We want our feet either on railroad tracks, so they're side by side, or if you feel a little more balanced and are comfortable, you can have heel to arch alignment in warrior one. Now that said, it is more often easier to have your feet in line with your hips. It's easier to keep the hips squared. So I would recommend that to start with. From here, we're going to lift the arms straight up overhead. And once again, we're working toward having the shoulders directly in line with the hips, the hands directly in line with the shoulders. If this is too much for the shoulders or the arms, it's okay to have a soft bend in the elbows, okay? But we're working towards straight arms, lifting arms right up overhead. Your biceps are gonna be by your ears eventually. We wanna spiral those pinky fingers in. Good. And then we want to stay lifted through the core. So nice strong core, lifting through the chest. Chin is away from the chest. Standing nice and strong in warrior one. Good. Go ahead and step forward. And then let's just switch sides to even it out. So step that right foot back, left foot forward. And we'll just go through this side a little bit quicker. But when we're in a yoga practice, we do want to balance out the two sides and keep them even. So we'll hold the pose for the same length of time on both sides. So again, alignment, take those feet to hip distance apart. One thing I didn't mention on the other side is we want this back foot at a 45-degree angle. So instead of 2 feet facing forward, we want back foot at 45-degree angle, front foot directly forward, heel behind toes. Square those hips again. A nice adjustment you can give yourself, like Carrie was just doing, is to take the hands to the hip and guide the hips. Right hip forward, left hip back. Because again, it's gonna be more common when you step that foot back that your hips are gonna start to open. So if the hips start to open, go ahead and either shorten your stance or lessen your lunge. So find that nice strong lunge. You should feel your quadricep working in the front leg. We wanna guide the arms up overhead. Shoulders are gonna be right in line with the hips. Hands right in line with the shoulders. We want those shoulders to be relaxed away from the ears, so try and avoid hunching the shoulders up by the ears, but draw the shoulder blades down and in. Good, very nice. Okay, go ahead and step forward. So next foundational posture that we're gonna do, so that was warrior one, Vajrasana 1. We're gonna move into Vajrasana 2, warrior 2, probably a pose that you've seen in a lot of pictures and one that's really highly associated with yoga. So for warrior 2, oftentimes, depending on the flexibility in your hips, you're gonna have a wider stance than you would in warrior 2. So go ahead and start with your right foot forward, step that left foot back. Okay, so Carrie is really tall, so she's gonna find a really wide stance on her mat. And you're gonna check in with your stance based on these alignment cues. So coming into warrior 2, you're gonna bring that back leg back, and once again, this back foot is gonna work toward a 45-degree angle. Now, if you do not have a flexible ankle and it feels too hard to find a 45-degree angle, you'll just have your toe in line with your heel, which is perfectly fine. All right, your front foot is gonna be toes directly in front of heels. You're gonna work into a 90-degree angle in your front leg. Hips are gonna work toward being squared and open to the side. Okay, so our hips were closed toward the front of our mat in warrior 1, and warrior 2, they're nice and open. Now, warrior 2, one of the common mistakes is to have a sway back, where your hips, where your pelvis will start to tilt back like this. Good. So one of the cues you might hear is to draw the tailbone down. Very nice. Good. So you want to draw that tailbone down so you don't have a sway back. You don't have a big arch in your lower back. It's okay if you have a little bit of an arch, but not a big one. And we're going to start to draw the right knee toward the right pinky toe. And again, one of the common things that happens in Warrior Two as we're building strength is that the knee might start to buckle in, okay? So it takes a lot of strength in the outer hip and glute to start to pull that knee open. It's something that we're working toward in our alignment with Warrior Two. All right, so moving up, again, we want a nice engaged core so that we're lifted, and we want those shoulders to be right over the hips. All right, so let's move forward. So we want the arms extended long. Arms are gonna come parallel with the mat. Now, shoulders over hips. Something that is common that you will see is the shoulders coming forward, leaning too far forward, or leaning too far back, or hunching forward or leaning back, okay? Very common. Just want to start to tune into the body and feel what's happening and start to notice these things in these postures. So we want those shoulders right over the hips. Arms are parallel to the earth. Triceps start to get nice and engaged, and we start to reach through the fingertips in both directions. All right, now we want the head in line with the spine. So the head is going to stay right where it is. And then in Warrior Two, our gaze comes toward the front of our fingertips. So without moving the head in line with the spine, we want to start to bring the chin toward the bicep or the shoulder and the gaze out across the front fingertips. So you have a nice solid Warrior Two here. And Carrie's probably getting tired. Okay, so step forward and we'll take it on the other side. And we won't hold it as long. So take that right foot back. Good. Yep, and keep going, good. So you'll just check in with your height and your particular stance. So again, working those toes to an angle, so you feel the outer edge of your foot grounding into the earth, so much so that sometimes that arch will start to lift up. Okay, nice solid leg. Tailbone draws in, knee draws open. Arms nice and strong, shoulders right over the hips, and then gaze out across the front fingertips. Good. Beautiful. All right, go ahead and step forward. Gonna feel a little uneven. All right, so we're gonna before we come into Warrior Three, which is gonna be a balancing posture on one foot, we're going to come into Reverse Warrior. Reverse Warrior is a really nice, expansive posture. It's a side bend, not a back bend, which is one of the common misconceptions about this posture before you learn how to really do it. And it's often used as a transitional posture in a flow class, but that does not mean that it's not a posture that shouldn't be held and enjoyed. So once again, actually, you know what? Let's start with your left foot forward this time so you can get a little evened out. So come into Warrior Two legs, the same legs we were just in. Extend the arms long. Good. Nice gaze across the front fingertips. And in Reverse Warrior, we're going to keep the legs just as they are. We're going to keep the torso basically how it is, and we're going to side bend, and it's not going to be a back bend. So Carrie's going to shift her right arm back, or whatever arm that is, and she's going to slide it down the back leg as she lifts her left arm up and over. Okay, and this arm is going to be resting on the back leg, but it's not going to be supporting the weight of the body. So as she lifts these fingertips up and back, she's going to feel a nice opening in her side ribs, her side body. She's going to stay low in that lunge. Oftentimes we'll come out of the lunge to get deep into the back bend, but you want to stay low in the lunge. Beautiful. And there should be no strain in the neck. So she can look up at her fingertips or she can look down at the floor, whatever feels most comfortable. Good. And come back to Warrior Two. Good. And then step to the front of the mat. All right, nice. We'll switch sides, Reverse Warrior on the other side. So right foot forward, left foot back, find that nice Warrior Two legs, extend the arms long. Good. And then first we're gonna just take a little shift back and then extend that back arm down toward the back leg. Front arm comes up and over. And really we're looking for this nice side bend, okay? So it's not, I'm just gonna show you one thing that often happens is that we come this way and start to look straight back. Yeah, so we wanna really keep those hips open and the bend is coming from the side of the body. Okay, good, beautiful. All right, go ahead and release from the pose. All right, so Warrior 3, Veer Vajrasana 3, is a semi-challenging balance posture on one leg. It takes a lot of spinal strength in full Warrior 3 variation. There's a couple variations of Warrior 3, including airplane pose, a couple different arm variations, but we're gonna do the full posture. So go ahead and step to the back of your mat. So Carrie, come on to the back of your mat. And to come into the pose today, we're gonna start by coming into tall mountain. So bring those arms straight up overhead. Good. And then we're gonna take a gaze toward the front of our mat, and we're going to take about a 2 or 3 foot step forward, nice and slow with the right foot. Good. Now from here, go ahead and keep that leg semi-straight. Good. We're going to take our weight onto that right foot and then slowly hinging, we're gonna come and lift that back leg off the floor. And we'll hinge the torso forward and go ahead and keep those arms forward. Good. So what Carrie just did was airplane pose with the arms at the side. And this is full Warrior 3 with the arms extended. I know this is really challenging to hold, so I won't hold you here for very long. In Warrior 3, we want the 2 hips squared. So I'm gonna start to rotate this hip down. We want the toes pointed down toward the floor. Good, nice strong arms. Good, and go ahead and release. I know that's a really, really hard one to hold. It takes and go ahead and step back. Yeah, so Warrior 3 takes a lot of upper back strength, it takes a lot of balance, it takes a lot of shoulder strength and leg strength too. So let's go ahead and take it on the other side. So step your opposite foot forward, nice and slow, extend those arms up overhead, and then take all of the weight onto the front foot and just nice and slow start to hinge forward. Good. So we're gonna have those wrists in line with the shoulders, in line with the hips, the heel in line with the hip, and then most importantly, common mistake in Warrior 3 is to start to hike that hip up. So we wanna square off the hips, keep that gaze nice and steady, elongating through the crown of the head. Very nice, go ahead and step back. Bravo, my friend, beautiful. That's a nice, challenging one. Like dripping sweat on the floor. All right, so those are our 4 Warrior foundational standing poses. They're really strong, grounding poses. They build a ton of strength. They build a lot of heat in the body. And they're great to practice when you're wanting to focus, find stability, grounding, and strength. We're gonna just do a little Vinyasa flow with the Warrior poses so you can see them in action. So I'm gonna have Carrie start out in a downward facing dog. And actually, while we're at it, let's just talk about downward facing dog, and we'll cover this in another video as well. We'll spend a little more time on downward facing dog. But in downward facing dog, we want the hands at shoulder distance apart, the shoulders at, the biceps are gonna start to rotate in, and this is gonna broaden the backside of the body. We really wanna ground down through the fingers, so much so that the palms might just slightly lift off the floor. So you're really pushing through your hands, lifting up. The hips are gonna come high. If this is too much on your hamstrings and your hamstrings are really tight, you just bend the legs. Okay, but most importantly in downward facing dog, or not most importantly, but one of the important things is that you want the head nice and relaxed. So you're not looking past your fingertips, you're not hunching your shoulders. The feet are gonna be in line with the hips. The heels are gonna draw to the floor. If the heels are really, really lifted, no worries. If the Achilles is tight, the calves are tight, that's okay. We're just starting to press them down toward the floor. And then without moving the heels, we're energetically pushing the heels to the outer edges of our mat. But instead of moving them, you start to find that action in the legs. The inner thighs are going to start to rotate open. Good. So you want nice, strong legs. Hips are lifted. Beautiful. All right, so go ahead and just step your right foot forward. We're going to come into warrior one. So that back heel is going to fall to the floor, 45-degree angle. Hips are going to stay squared. Arms are going to lift up. Nice warrior one. Take a nice deep inhale here, and then we're going to open up to warrior two. So this might mean moving your stance like Carrie did, just moving that back leg a little bit open. Hips are going to open, shoulders are going to open. Beautiful. And then reverse warrior, take that back hand down the back leg, lift that front arm up and over, nice side bend. All right, and then come back to warrior two. And then look toward the front of the mat, and then transition from here back to warrior one. So front arm comes nice, beautiful. Warrior one, shorten that stance, square off the hips, and then very slowly transition to warrior two. So you're gonna step onto that warrior three. You're gonna step onto that front leg, keep those arms nice and extended, and foot comes off the floor. Beautiful, good. Step back, warrior one. Release the hands to the earth and come back to down dog. And we'll just show that nice warrior sequence on the other side. So just take a couple breaths if you're following along. And then we're going to step the opposite foot forward now. So left foot comes forward. Again, a little bit of a shorter stance for warrior one. Lift the arms up overhead, square off those hips, square off those shoulders. Looks really nice, Carrie. And then open up to warrior two. And this might mean adjusting your legs, the length of your legs. And then moving into reverse warrior. Back hand down the back leg, front arm up and over. And then make your way back to warrior two. And then warrior one. So square off those hips. Both arms reach up, beautiful. Maybe shorten that stance, preparing for warrior three. So you're gonna find a nice place to gaze at on the ground, and then slowly start to straighten through that front leg and lift the back leg off the floor. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, step back to warrior one. Release your hands to the earth and step back to down dog. Beautiful. And then go ahead and take a child's pose. So bring the knees wide on the mat, toes come down to touch. You're going to release your hips down towards your heels, relax your forehead down on the mat, extend your arms nice and long, and just take a couple breaths here. All right, the last thing we're going to do in this video tutorial is we're just going to go through a simple sun salutation. If you're practicing a Vinyasa flow class, a sun salutation is going to be a part of every single one of them. It's a flow from through a sequence of postures that move breath to movement. So we start to link the breath to the movement, but it's important that we know the poses first so we know what we're doing and we're not moving too fast and out of alignment in these poses. So I'm going to have Carrie come back to her downward facing dog because our downward facing dog is going to be an important part of our sun salutation because this is where we'll return to every time. If you're in a public class and the teacher is cueing sun salutations, the teacher might go at a different pace than your breath. So it's always important that you're moving at your own pace and that you're moving with your breath. So in the classes that I teach, I like to say that we always meet back at this posture, downward facing dog. So it's an important one. So we're going to move from downward facing dog. We're going to look forward past our hands so we know where we're going, and then we're going to walk our feet to the front of our mat. Good. And then we'll come into forward fold, which we've already visited. So this is Uttanasana, forward fold. Doesn't matter how deep you are in your fold, if your legs are bent, you just want to find your forehead or the crown of your head coming all the way down to the floor. So from Uttanasana, forward fold, we're going to rise all the way up to tall mountain. So you can reach your arms off to the side, come all the way up, fingertips reach up, you have a nice strong foundation in your legs, you're nice and lifted, and then we go right back to forward fold. So again, arms can come off to the side or they can come through heart center, but most importantly, we're hinging at the hips and we're releasing the head at the end of the forward fold, legs bent or straight. Okay, we're gonna plant the hands on the floor. So if the hands aren't on the floor, you can bend your legs as much as needed so you can place your hands on the floor. We're gonna step back to a plank pose. So step all the way back. All right, and so in plank pose, we want to avoid the hips coming too high, like we're in a down dog, the hips coming too low and sinking toward the earth. So we want the hips right in line with the shoulders and the heels. So you're one long line. This looks beautiful, Carrie. And we want to press through the hands up out of the shoulders, but we want to avoid rounding the back too much. So we want to find, yeah, really nice, but not sinking too much in the shoulders. It's this nice fine balance, okay? Chin is a little bit forward. We're looking just slightly past our hands, pressing back through our heels. Once again, she's holding a really challenging pose, so we'll let her down. We're gonna go ahead and come all the way down to the floor. Elbows are gonna come in by the ribs and they're gonna graze the ribs and we're gonna come all the way down to the earth. Beautiful, good. So moving into Cobra pose, Bhujangasana. The hands are gonna come right underneath the shoulders. The feet are gonna come flat to the floor. Feet, once again, are in line with the hips, in line with the shoulders. Elbows stay close in. So try and avoid splaying the elbows out. Pull those elbows in, we engage through the tricep, and then we lift through the shoulders. So we wanna lift using the strength in our back. We're gonna have a little bit of strength in our arms, that's totally fine, but this is a spine strengthener. Good, and so the head stays in line with the spine. You have this nice arc here. Okay, go ahead and lower down. All right, so go ahead and tuck the toes under. We're gonna come up into plank pose. So you can just press up on the arms. Okay, so right here, modification for plank is to rest the knees on the floor. So as we rest the knees on the floor, we wanna keep this nice foundation through our upper body. All right, so really nothing changes. So lift your knees up, plank, modification, still plank. Beautiful, good. So come back to plank, and then let's come back to down dog. All right, so that's basically one pretty basic sun salutation. So let's go ahead and we're gonna talk about Chaturanga next. That's gonna be a whole tutorial in and of itself, and then we'll just go through the flow of a sun salutation. So look forward past the hands, step your feet to meet your hands. You can just kind of walk them. You can take one giant step and then come into forward fold. Rise up, Tadasana, tall mountain, and let's take it right back to forward fold. All right, and then we haven't talked about Ardha Uttanasana, halfway lift monkey pose, so we're gonna do that real quick. Come up to a halfway lift, find a flat back. So hands, if the hands don't reach the floor, take them to the shins or take them to the thighs. Go ahead and take them up to the thighs. Yeah, either way, you want a nice flat torso. So whatever you need to do to get your support, you can take your hands back to the floor. Good, you just wanna lengthen through the spine. Beautiful. And then back to a forward fold and step back plank pose. You can take plank or you can take knees to the floor. And this time we're gonna take Chaturanga. So in Chaturanga, once again, the elbows stay in. It's not a traditional push-up. We're gonna come halfway down just to hover. In Chaturanga, we want the elbows to come in 90 degrees, beautiful. Right here, hover, and then flip the feet over, take the tops of the feet flat to the floor, beautiful. Upward facing dog. So instead of Cobra, if you can hold up dog for just a sec, this is upward facing dog. The thighs are off the floor. The arms are nice and extended. The chin is lifted. We have this nice arc in the back. The head stays in line with the spine. Beautiful. Back to downward facing dog. Good. Take another breath here. And let's go through one sun salutation, breath to movement. So look forward past your hands, walk your feet toward the front of your mat. Forward fold, Uttanasana. Rise up, tall mountain, come all the way up, reach up, and then exhale all the way back down to forward fold. Find halfway lift, monkey pose, Ardha Uttanasana, inhale, and exhale, forward fold. Plant the hands, step back, plank pose, and exhale, Chaturanga, or again, you can come all the way down Cobra pose or upward facing dog, flip the feet over, extend, and then back to downward facing dog. Beautiful. Good. And then go ahead and take the knees to the floor, take the knees wide, extended child's pose, and rest. Good. All right, so that's a quick intro to some really important postures and the sun salutation sequence in a Vinyasa style yoga class. So you got to see the foundation, the alignment, and then how we can link some of these postures together. And I thank you to Carrie, my model. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. And this will, again, be a part of a series. So I hope you come back for more. Namaste.